It's time for another top 10 this week, and that's partly because it's a pretty poor week for cars this week in GTA Online, and both Martini Taff and That One Chick gave me an idea through some of the comments they left on one of my other videos, and that was to do a bit of a rundown of the best cars to use when you're playing with your mates. Now, the state of GTA Online in 2024, moving into 2025, a lot of us do play solo, but there's still a decent chunk of people who play with friends.
Friends?
Yeah, friends. And if you're one of those, you might be looking for something different when you choose a car for each session. If so, then this is the list for you. So let's get started, and we'll get started with 3 cars that I am ruling out from this list. And I say cars, but they are the Conjali, the Insurgent Pickup Custom, and the Halftrack. And they're all ruled out for similar reasons. The Conjali, look, let's face it, it's a tank. No other way of looking at it, it's a tank. There's no place on a list of cars for a tank. Although this does get a special mention because it's one of the few and possibly the only vehicle in the game where you can get 4 people in it and they'll all have something to do. So they'll all have either a gun or a mortar. So there are no passengers in the Conjali. Second is the Insurgent Pickup Custom because it's not far off being a tank, and again this gets a special mention because this, I believe, has the highest capacity of any normal vehicle, shall we say. In that you can get 9 people in this, 2 in the front, 2 in the back, 2 in the bed, 2 on the sides and 1 on a gun. So if you actually have 8 friends to play with, not a bad choice. And the last one is the Halftrack. For the same reasons, it's basically a tank, but what I will say, if there are just 2 of you, then this is the ideal thing to be in if you just want to go out and cause a little bit of mischief. So I'm sorry, but
You're out, Tom.
that said, let's get back onto the main list, and we'll start with number 10. And having ruled out lots of other military vehicles, at number 10 I've got the Nightshark, which is 4-door, armoured, with machine guns. It's reasonably quick, it's good off-road, it's good on-road. I've got it this far down because I just don't like the way people use it. It seems to have 2 modes. There only seem to be 2 ways to use this. One is at full power with your finger on the machine gun button, and the other is in the garage not being used. There's no in between. It's almost like the road-going version of, dare I say it, the Mosquito. Moving on to number 9. Now this is the first of a few where I couldn't decide when I was writing the list, and I should say I'm on about version 9 of this list. So some of these I'm going to make my mind up as I actually do the voiceover. So at number 9 I was torn between the Revolta and the VSTR, just because for 4-door sedans these things just drive incredibly well. The handling's good, the top speed's good. Everything about these things is they're just such good fun to use. On balance, the Revolter is revolting in my view, so the VSTR gets it on this one, just based on looks and sound. The VSTR looks fabulous and has an amazing sound, whereas the Revolter doesn't. At number 8, we've got the Karuma. Now, if you've seen any of my videos before, you'll probably know why I put this so low down. Yeah, it's just dull. I admit it is a very good car. If you're doing missions, this makes missions an awful lot easier, basically because you're almost 100% bulletproof. Not quite 100%, but not far off. So if you're new to the game and you're struggling to get through the missions, it does make them easier. And that's my problem with it. I think it makes them too easy. A lot of the missions in this car, they're not a challenge, it's just a matter of driving around and picking people off. Like everything in this game, it's each to their own, but that just doesn't do it for me. At number 7, we've got another car that I always complain about, and that's the Opel EGT, which is actually a really good car. It's armoured, it's electric, so it's quick around the city. The top speed's not brilliant, but if you're doing missions or if you're messing around in a session, you're probably going to be in the city anyway. The quick takeoff and the good handling are brilliant in this thing. My problem with it is I don't like the car it's based on, I don't like the Audi it's based on, and I just can't put it any higher. It probably does deserve to be higher in the list, but I can't do it.
We'll find display.
So sorry,
Various
didn't see you
weapons
there.
used for...
At number 6 we've got another car that's been penalised because of how people use it, and that's the Buffalo STX. This is actually a really good car. It's a muscle car and it drives and sounds like a muscle car, but it's actually really controllable. It has much better handling than most of the other muscle cars. But the problem is with this, people use it the same way they use the Nightshark, i.e. just driving around at full pelt with one finger on the machine gun button. And whenever you see one, it's just an annoyance. So for that reason, it's relegated down to number 6. But that doesn't mean it's a bad car to use if there's a group of you. If you've got a few people in this, armoured, with machine guns, this is a good choice. At number 5 I've got another one where I couldn't decide, and I know a lot of you will probably think this should be below the Buffalo STX, but I was deciding between the Jugular and the Vorschlaghammer, and the Vorschlaghammer appears on just about every top 10 list I've done recently. But I think on this list, I think the Jugular pips it by a nose, and that's based on two things. They're both really cool, they're both fabulous four-door cars, both great to drive, both great fun, and both look good. But the Jugular makes a much better noise and has much better handling. So if I've got to choose between those two, at number 5 we're going with the Jugular. At number 4 we've got the Canis Terminus. Now this is actually the newest car on this list. It has Imani Tech, it has armour, it's good off-road, it's good on-road, it looks good. I can't say anything bad about this. I think it's a great car. So why is it at number 4? Well, that's just because in my view, the top 3 are just better. But the Terminus, another fabulous choice if you're playing with your friends. So now we hit the top 3. And at number 3 we get a car that I've only just bought, and that's the Neon. Now it's not armoured, it doesn't have machine guns, but what it does have
are a very particular set of skills.
4 doors and an amazing takeoff. So if you're looning it about in the city, there are a few cars that are better than this for just messing around through the city. You could argue the EGT is a similar kind of car, but the EGT has armour and can take a few rockets, but the Neon just looks so much cooler. And part of the thing about playing with your mates, well, for me when I do it, it's more about having fun and having a laugh, not necessarily being in the car which has the best stats. It's about being in the car that means you're having the most fun, and for me the Neon's right up there. At number 2 I figured when we're getting to the top of the list we need to have something sensible in the top 2, and this is another one where I was torn. I was torn between the Shafter V12, particularly the armoured version, the Cognoscenti armoured, and the Jubilee. So let's go through each in turn. The Cognoscenti armoured I think is a fabulous looking thing. It's a bit slow but it has reasonable handling, whereas the Shafter V12 is a bit faster. However, I find the handling on this thing to be quite tricky, which is not what you want if you're looning it about through the city. So for that reason, my pick for number 2 is the Jubilee. And yes, I know you get one free with the agency, but one thing I will say, even though you're getting that one free, it is worth buying one, because as soon as you put the suspension and the performance upgrades on it, it really brings it to life. And it also means you can put the machine guns on, which you can't put on the agency one. So Jubilee, for my money, is a solid pick for number 2. So what have I put at number 1? Some of you will be surprised at this, and some of you, if you've seen my videos before, will not be surprised at this at all. At number 1, I've got the Enos Windsor Drop.
Do you have someone who looks after you?
Yeah, I can hear the sighs. So just give me a minute, let me explain myself. The reason this car is at number 1 for me is because it's so ridiculously unsuitable for anything that you'd want to do in the game. It's not particularly fast, doesn't have particularly great handling, it has no armour, it has no weapons. So that's all in the negative side. But in the plus side, it's a 4-door convertible Rolls Royce. And let's face it, if this game were in real life, what would you rather be driving round in with your 4 other gangster mates? A Mitsubishi or a 4-door convertible Rolls Royce? I'm going to go in the Rover because I think it's like peak GTA. For your character in this game, this would be the ultimate flex. It's the way of saying that you've got more money than sense and that you're completely invincible, so much so that you don't mind driving around in a convertible with the roof down in the winter. So that's my pick for number 1. I doubt there'll be many agreeing with my number 1, but let me know what you think of the rest of the list. Take care of yourselves, and I'll see you in the next one.